All right, we're live.
Hello, everybody. Hello, beautiful panelists. It's a hot day here in Sedona. Hope you're all doing well. We are gathered together today to talk about service. And I'm joined by this lovely panel who I know has a heart of, each one of you has a heart of service. So I'm so excited to get this conversation rolling. So I would like to begin with each of you introducing yourselves and telling us a little bit about what you're up to these days, how you made it through this eclipse equinox season, and what's next for you. Lynnda, how about let's start with you?
Hi, my name is Lynnda Pollio, and I live in Sedona, Arizona. I am a consciousness doula, which basically means I have spent my entire life, from the time I was a child, sort of connected into the unseen realms and committed to helping myself and others birth consciousness out of their unconscious. I'm also an author of a multi-award winning spiritual novel called Trusting the Currents. And I'm also a frequency artist. I create art that brings frequency through communications onto paper and canvas to help people transform. I have navigated this eclipse season as best as I could. It's been a wild ride, mostly just crazy busy and all kinds of things happening and trying to be discerning. My most recent painting is called Blossom of Discernment, which is all about being discerning in these kind of chaotic times. So I've been living what I've been expressing. And I'm happy to be here because being of service is number one in my life right now. I've gotten to the age and to the level of experience in life that I want to be able to give back to those that are kind of coming up and trying to navigate this wild world that we're in right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I want to encourage people to go to Linda's Instagram and check out this latest work of hers on discernment, because I feel like definitely the codes come through the painting, even online, and who couldn't use a little discernment in the chaos. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, Linda. Ashley, how about you?
Thank you so much. So excited to be a part of this panel today. My name is Ashley Phoenix, and gosh, so I am newly a community coordinator for a nonprofit that is called Global Lightworkers United. I'm very, very excited to share about this. It's my first time saying it out loud in public, so I'm very, very excited. I'm also a tarot advisor and a divine feminine embodiment body reader and spiritual counselor. And so that is what I do. And in regards to this eclipse portal, it's one of those things where anything that was not real or true had to be released completely and fully in trust and surrender to the divine. So, what that means for me is that my corporate sort of muggle job did not survive the portal. But stepping, but stepping into this amazing opportunity with this nonprofit did. So yeah, very excited to talk about service.
Thank you, Ashley. Jade, let's hear from you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jade Orth. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. I can't even stop my smile right now. Service is something that ever since I was a child, it's definitely transformed through the years, but it's really near and dear to my heart. And I have been doing different types of service, and it's actually been changing quite a bit. But family alchemy is really something that I'm really starting to tie together. I've worked with women and mothers and people that want to be mothers or birthing things. I started working with men and children. And so now there's like this system that's coming together that I actually don't know what it quite looks like yet. That's part of what this eclipse portal has been helping me. We ended up moving my family to Prescott. So the heat down in the valley did not survive the portal, thank goodness. And I'm really been focusing on actually internally slowing down, asking myself, what do I want my everyday life and my family? I have 3 children. Um, to look like, feel like, and slowing way down. And I think I want to bring that type of like somatic experience, frequency experience, very embodied, um, back to some values that I really kind of let go in what I thought I was doing in my service work, but I'm bringing it back in. So it's really exciting, and I'm really happy to dive into this conversation with everybody.
Thank you, Jade. I really look forward to seeing what you're creating and bringing forth. I know it's been on the burner for a while, and I'm super excited about that. Joan, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Joan Advent, and I am in the Richmond, Virginia area. And my newest endeavor is I launched a podcast during the eclipse portal, which I didn't know. I didn't know that was going to be happening. But I launched it on September 9th, so the 999 portal, and it is the Crone codes, which is all about how we gather the codes for our cronehood throughout the whole arc of our feminine experience as women. And so I am just diving into recording new episodes and interviewing people. I'm sure at some point I'll be reaching out to each of you about your journeys to include you. And I will say that during the eclipse portal, it was the 9th anniversary of my mother's passing. And it really feels like there was a culmination and completion. So similar to what Ashley said, it felt like there was no stone left unturned. But in bringing this podcast forth, anything related to my own cronehood, which much was related to my mother and my daughter, was in the crucible. So I feel like a whole new woman. So thanks.
Thank you, Joan. I really look forward to diving into those episodes. I know this has been up for me as well, and I just want to say that some of you do not qualify as Crohn's, and you have to earn your way into it. So I'm sure you will at some point, many, many years down the line. Megan, how about you?
Here I am. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I'm in Arkansas, my new home. Uh, so, I'm doing great. In a very quiet space. If I see people, it's because I leave my home. Otherwise, I just see this one man over and over and over again every day of my life. Which is going really well, but it's so quiet. It's a major transition that I've come through. I'm moving out and out into the country, but on a lake. So things are very quiet. Um, and I appreciate it because I'll comment on the portal first on the eclipse portals because I had so many things happen, but in the quiet of my own space that it was incredibly peaceful. I feel like with the solar eclipse, I really moved through a bunch of shadow work, and then like literally 2 weeks later, 2.5 weeks later, you're moving through this really illuminated portal through that eclipse, and both things happened. So for me, regarding service, if I look back on the first part of my adult life, I was very dedicated directly to service. I worked for nonprofits. I was an AmeriCorps member. I lived in a group home. I worked with the homeless. I worked with women and children. That's what I did with the entire first, 20 years of my professional life was I worked for nonprofits. It was service. And I remember thinking, well, this is the secret because every day I go to work, I'm fulfilled in this way. Like this is the secret to being happy professionally. But then you hit this like ceiling and you're like, oh, I have all these other things I need to do. So I left the nonprofit world. And I went into a different kind of service, and I would call that human service, right? Regarding my teaching yoga, me working with people through mantras and meditations and becoming centered and experiencing embodiment, right? That's really the work for me as a yoga instructor. It's very body-centered service and bringing people into that. And now I feel like I've been like kind of wandering the streets, like, what's my cause? What's my cause? Like, I don't know what my cause is. They're all my causes. Every time something comes forward, I'm like, that's my cause. And I'm taking it so literally, right? Service. So I'll save the rest of my commentary on service until we get into the meat of the questions. But I'm kind of looking, I'm like, I'm for hire over here when it comes to service. But then the portal changed everything. And I have gone full circle, like back to my little activist roots. It's coming out in this like current of activism that's brewing from inside of me. But the difference is now I have this gift of quietness. I don't feel like getting involved in most of the conversations. I'm very capable of observing, not engaging, not fighting, right? There's this balance that I'm striking to keep my own peace. And so I'm not exactly sure, but this inner feminist is coming out, and she is not fighting. She is a very gentle, quiet, soft undercurrent. No one's even gonna know it's happening. So I know it's centered around women. And that's, yeah.
Thank you, Meggan.
Thank you.
My name is Kay, and I thought today was Wednesday, so I apologize to those of you who were looking for us online. We're a little bit late today, and thank you, panelists, for hanging in there with me. Thank you for your patience. So I have come through, obviously, through the eclipse portal without my head attached to my body. It's been a culmination of almost a year's worth of accelerated initiations and growth for me. And I'm finding that my biggest challenge is to stay centered, grounded, and calm while my path is flying ahead. Right at the tail end of my third draft on my novel, getting ready to put that into the world and continuing with these panel chats and a few other things coming up too. So happy to be here, and let's get started. So I want to start with Jade today because she touched a little bit on what she was up to. And Jade, I know that you consider yourself to be of service, and I'm just wondering how that evolved. How did you come into this? And what place does service actually hold in your life?
Amazing. That's such a good question that is honestly like ever evolving. So I was kind of pondering it, and as a little girl, I came in like very service oriented. Like I remember, when I was 6 years old, I thought it was so fun to go pick up litter because Mother Earth, it was helping Mother Earth. And my mom worked with Catholic Social Services at the time for a group home for girls, and we had foster daughters growing up, or sisters. They had foster. So my mom was really someone that exposed me to that type of service work early on. So I got to see a lot of people that lived differently or didn't have homes, or heard stories that I'm really grateful for, looking back, that I was open to that, to really be able to open my eyes and my heart to wanting to help and be of service. But I started to realize much later in life that I was getting like praised for service. So it kind of became an identity of me, and it became like self-sacrificing service, where I almost tied my worth to how much I was helping or serving. And after a while with that, because helping create different things, even when I worked in Tempe when I was in my early 20s, I was pregnant at the time. I created a little thing where we were feeding the homeless every Wednesday, different things like that. So I've always tried to be in service. However, um, I I started to reevaluate. I have to separate my worthiness or who I am in the world from just being somebody that's here to serve. Like, what does that actually mean? And I had to get really clear. And so for the past 2 years, I was deconstructing my entire life. I don't even want to say deconstructing. It didn't feel like that. I was dissolving. I was dissolving back into just my essence, maybe, or what that looked like. And um, I had to learn that, like, when we're radically embodying our own energy, our own hearts, our own intention of wanting to live well and helpful, that we can be of service in anything we do. Like, there's, in my opinion, musicians and artists and people at the grocery store. Like, you can be in service anywhere you go. And it's more about just like an embodiment thing. I know you guys were talking about embodiment. And so I kind of had to reevaluate when I really honed in on my family unit of, was I still even in service when I wasn't offering sessions or holding these events or doing different things. And I really came back to the value of what it means to be of service to me, which is really just having an open heart, knowing that we're all here together. We all have something to offer, and we're all kind of in that space of, if we're showing up so fully in ourselves and our gifts, then that is a great service also. And so from that place, and moving very slow, I'm starting to see how I can maybe embody that either for others to teach families in situations, or if it will eventually turn into a service again. But that's kind of my arc of just always staying open, humble, and curious about what service means to me and how I'm showing up to serve.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. I'm wondering if, during this early time in your experience with service, if you were simultaneously being served, like, were you able to receive while you were in this all-out giving mode?
Mm. I
Because
think,
I think you pointed a little bit to this, the difference between being a servant and being a martyr.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, martyr runs deep in my line, a lineage for me. Yeah. So, and thank you for naming that word so clearly, because absolutely, like, I definitely was taking on the martyr archetype for a long time. Looking back, I think I was served also, just by really understanding from an early age certain importances, and absolutely, it wasn't like a reciprocity type thing for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you arrive on the planet, or, as a young child, are aware of your heart of service, I feel the same way. That was my experience. You can kind of fall into the trap of thinking that you are meant to always be giving and never receiving. And I'm still working that one out. So, Ashley, I see you nodding your head. I'm wondering if that also is your experience, and kind of wondering about how your involvement with service began and evolved.
Thank you so much. And yes, my story is very, very similar to Jade's, in the sense that God, I feel like I was born. I don't know if it was learned so much. I mean, I think it was reinforced, but I really feel like I came in with a seeded knowledge that humanity is important, and how we engage with others and how we create community, or groups of play friends or whatever it is. Like, I learned that those dynamics were important very, very early on. And I feel that service naturally came from that space, whether it was gifting time, or gifting a creativity, or helping out a friend who was upset over something. I noticed that this sort of heart of service was very present within any engagement that I had with other. Didn't matter if it was a teacher, didn't matter if they were older, younger, animals, all the things. And that's sort of been the progression of my entire life. I've had the gift of working with animals. I've had the gift of working with humans in different experiences. And I love that Jade brought up sort of the shadow aspect of service, because it's also was on my heart and something that I wrote down, and pretty much the same words too, exactly the same, of this idea of having a heart of service, but the dynamic of martyrdom that is sometimes encouraged and reinforced within our collective consciousness, that we have to sort of die for our beliefs, or we have to die in service. And I noticed for me the biggest shadow aspect when I was operating from a martyrdom space is that those accolades and that sort of, it's out of balance, the reciprocity that exists there. The universal law of reciprocity is definitely out of alignment when you're operating from a martyrdom space. And I found the smallest seed of resentment started to plant, and it actually started to affect my heart of service. My heart of service became a space of dis-ease instead of abundant, joyous, overflowing space. So I've gone full circle with that, where I learned what the extreme was, and I've learned to lay that down and now operate from a space of reciprocity, of balance, of making sure that my heart always feels open, present, abundant.
Beautiful. Do you think that the heart of service is intrinsic in every human being?
That's a great question. I actually haven't considered that before, to be honest. I don't know if it is. I believe that humanity has an interdependence. I think that we exist in an interdependent space, but I feel like there are so many unique blueprints of humans that come here. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I can already feel my consciousness shifting, like right now in this split second, because now that I'm thinking about it, I do think it is an innate gift and skill that is either pushed aside and underdeveloped and not encouraged, or it's on the opposite side. And I think service looks different. And I think humanity has not gotten clear about what the definition of service is. Because I think it plays out in different scenarios in different ways, but people might not understand that they're actually being of service in those split second moments in their everyday human experience.
Yeah, beautiful. I've read or heard before that people come to the planet with either a mission to serve other or serve self. And I don't mean like in a self-serving way, but more focused on their own growth in this lifetime. So I don't know if that's true, and I'm sure there's overlap and there has to be more than two options, right? I just can't believe that's it. But let's move on here to Lynnda. I'm interested, Lynnda, in hearing about your evolution with service, because you were, born in a time when sort of the service looked a certain way, movements, feminism, not civil, well, civil rights, you're not quite that old, but, like these big blocks of movements. And that's kind of the frame around which service was enacted in society. So I'm wondering what your experience was with that.
Um, well, I think service has sort of evolved over time, and I think service, like everything else we do in the world of consciousness, is really probably not the right word for it. But we don't really have proper words, so all our words are very polarizing. I look at service as sort of collaboration to the point of generosity. Like I feel like whenever I feel very much connected to service. And when I was a child, I was the caregiver. I took care of every bug, every plant, every animal, family, friends. I mean, I didn't call it service, but that was just the innate part of my personality that felt like I had something to offer. And yes, that does get pushed into kind of martyrdom. You then begin to think that that's your value, and your service is not your value. Um, your value extends way beyond that. Service is, I think, something that gets brought in when you have extra to give. If you don't have extra to give, it's very hard to be of service and not felt taken advantage of, or not felt like you need something back for that service. And for me, service is just service. Like right now in my life, when I was younger, it was all about taking care of things. Now it's more of providing support and holding a space and sharing my life experience so that people that come after me maybe don't have to go through everything I went through. Because I think, at my age, I was basically out there with a machete chopping down the path in a jungle. And what I want to do as part of my service is use what I've done in that pathway to help others get through to the next level beyond where I am, so that we can keep growing as a culture and as a consciousness. But yeah, I think service is a misunderstood idea, and I believe that we are all capable of service. The potential is there. Whether we take it on, I don't think you have to. I think it's a calling in life. Like if you become a nun, I mean, or you become an artist. The idea of service is a calling. It's not something that you need to try to figure out how to be. It will tell you. It will show you the way, and that way may change over the years, but you will definitely know how you're going to be of service.
Yeah, I think that's interesting what you're hinting to is that, we roll through these periods of service to self where we become qualified to serve others. And I happen to think that it probably is somehow intrinsic in human nature that we're just a helping species. We all came here with the divine knowing that we're all one. And I think the idea of service has, like everything else, has been distorted and used to hook us into kind of self-sacrificing programs and that end up being ultimately being self-destructive. So Meggan, I know that you hinted at your lifetime of service, and I'm curious, like where the impetus for that came from. Was it what's your why? Did you just drop in with your why intact and never had to examine it? I think you're muted. Oh no, go
No,
ahead.
no, I'm here. My mouth was open and I was like,
Gotcha.
Um, I think like a few panelists have suggested there was this sort of, from birth, I have this heart of service. It's like I just have that compassion. I have that empathy. It's part of the wiring, I feel to a certain degree. I grew up in a Catholic family where we did like our soup kitchens and did very literal, right, volunteer time and hours. And so I I think it actually I actually hated it. I didn't like that charitable thing. I still to this day, I don't give them money a lot quite often. I pulled my son out of the jump rope for heart, at school. Like I'm like very anti-fundraiser a lot of time. That's another story for another time. But it's important because I feel like it's because I was being told what service was, and it didn't match the frequency of my heart's service, which at a very at such an obvious turning point when I went into college. I took an anthropology class, and Dr. Leslie Beltran talked all about cultural anthropology. I'm like, there's this whole world out there. And then like you can go and you can go serve in other countries. You can go work all over the world and help people that aren't doing this thing that I had sort of been spoon-fed my whole life. It was another version. And that's what opened my eyes to service. And so when it was time for me to actually go to college and like you decide my major, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had those core credits behind me and I remembered I'm going to go volunteer for a year or two or whatever until I figure out who I am. I'm not going to go get a degree. So again, it was sort of literal. I became an AmeriCorps member. I moved into this group home in Las Vegas. Ultimately, for 2.5 years, I lived in that home, and it was a domestic job. It was just like raising these young men in this house, and we were asked. There was another moment when I had that job where I was asked the question, or we were all asked the question. We were at a conference with everyone who worked for this nonprofit. How do we define success? And everyone was saying, oh, they graduate and go to college because that was kind of the mission to get kids that weren't probably going to go to college into college. Did all these things. And I just raised my hand, like not knowing I was being all prophetic and stuff. But I was like, I think if they are serving others, we can consider it successful. And the it was like showstopper, right? Like in the room, like mic drop. I didn't mean it though. It was so obvious to me because what I had discovered at an incredibly young age is that when you serve, you don't question the meaning of life. You know it. You do it, man. You feel it. You never feel so alive. If your service especially is aligned with your soul path, right? Like perhaps if you're so blessed to experience it in an environment that fires you up, you don't have these bigger questions. This is the point. And so I feel like coming back really quick to one of the things that we were talking about, I feel like it's community, right? Like everyone can be of service if the community is a vital operating system. When the community's broke, we lose the people that aren't just like, oh, I'm of service. Here's my service cape. I'm here. It's so inobvious what people's purpose for service is. When our communities are broke, they might not even get the niche that they need, right? When our communities are intact, it's so obvious what every contributing member's purpose is. It's kind of purpose in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like when your community is broken, you have the sense of, fending for yourself, and you're kind of, trying to survive. You're trying to make sure you have what you need. And do you think that service has to come from a standpoint of some sense of abundance?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, no, because I mean we've all seen the video, the reel of the homeless person offering one of the $2 they collected that day to their friend who's also homeless. Like, no, no, in fact, I, I believe when the community is intact, when there is a time of need or want, that the abundance will just overflow, right? It's kind of silly to think of it that way, but it would be so obvious to those who have to to be in service to those who have not.
Hmm.
Because those who have not, then when they're nourished, what are they going to do? Lo and behold, it's gonna boil over. And so
Yeah.
I do see like you could come into this world with part of your purpose for service is to be healthy, be balanced, be okay. Right? So I
So
don't.
how do you avoid the trap of like judging others for their service or lack thereof, or on the other side, the ego of being, special because you're serving.
Is that for me or for everyone?
That's for you.
Oh boy. Um, I mean, like, I'd like to think I'm so laser focused, I don't even notice where other people are falling short in service. Um, but that's such an easy answer. That's like escapism answer. Um, um, I don't really know how to answer that, Kay, because I do get mad, right? So like when I say I have this little interactivist, this feminist, my degree is in women's studies, right? It's like boiling back to the surface from like 2001 when I graduated college, but it's like I, I, for me right now, it's about rearing back and checking back in, like, ooh, transfer that anger feeling because something that Lynnda, spoke a little bit about, and the question you asked her is like, what is this timeline, right? What has it looked like in your life? When it comes to like being an activist or protesting things, is that service? Like, heck yeah, it feels like service at times because you're standing up for people and human rights. So that's where I get caught in the judgment is when I think that people are hurting other people or hurting animals and you're wrong and I'm right. And I want to yell about it or I want to try to change you. That's not the work. We're going to try to change people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not the work.
It,
So I
it's,
think that's how my judgment comes out.
yeah, it's interesting to, when the service comes in the form of, it comes from a place of outrage, and justice rather than a place of just regular kindness and giving. So, Joan, I would love for you to weigh in here first, starting with your evolution with service, kind of how you came into service and where it fits in your life.
Yes, so I too uh, was born with the heart of service, and certainly within my family of origin was the one who was kind of most tuned in to what was going on and what the perceived needs were of what was happening and how to address those things. I did later get a degree in social work, which is deeply rooted in, in service. And also, as everyone has been talking, I was remembering, I also have roots in the 12-step tradition, and being of service is a foundational principle there that in people's earliest recovery from addiction, for example, they encourage service work in a way to recognize that A, you're not broken, B, uh, B, you have something to offer, C, you are needed. So that I think is important. And I recently saw a post related to children and the importance of them having a role to play in the family or a contribution to make. And just that sense of who we are, not so much that affirmation of the ego, which I certainly have had that experience as well of identifying with being of service, but really just knowing that my contribution matters. I have a contribution to make. The community runs better when everyone is making some form of contribution, which may be more in the being form or the doing form. So that's what comes to mind.
Beautiful. Thank you. Um, let's see. Can you talk a little bit about your personal path with service and how that evolved based on, your age, where you were in your life? Um,
Hmm. Well, I will say, as I said, I have a master's in social work, and I initially started doing intensive in-home services for at-risk families. And so I would go into people's homes and do my best to be of support to moms and kids who were just in need of some stabilizing or some kindness or some resources. And then also did work in a spiritual community as a spiritual teacher and guide. And then, as I said, a member of 12 Steps. So in many ways, there's been a weaving of threads of being of service, but also the truism of charity begins at home came to mind as we were talking. And for many years, pouring myself into service within my family as a mom, as a wife, um, and really sometimes overdoing that, overgiving, so to speak, and sometimes coming into more of a balanced state. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I'm so happy that we have Jade here with us because I am so curious about, because I consider you to be a conscious parent. I mean, others of you are conscious as what conscious parents. I was not particularly. So I'm just wondering how this legacy of service is being passed down to your children and what form that's taking. What does that look like?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's actually, I'm having a somatic experience right now as you ask me that question. So I just want to say, I wasn't always a conscious parent. Like my oldest will be 18 in December. And I was a very young parent. I was very in the trenches, trying my best. My heart of service, I feel like, did make an imprint, but I don't know how conscious I was. So I just need to say that. But what's coming to me right now is I think just the presence of always opening up the conversation and allowing it to evolve, because there were times where I would be considered of being of service, whether that was helping in communities or doing sessions, yet my energy was pulled more from my family. And then, they knew I was going out to help people or whatever, the story was, or they would hear people, when we would pass or a friend would say something like that I helped. So they would hear that. However, then the dynamic would shift where I would focus more to the family and we would see like, what does that really mean for us? Like, what am I bringing them to do? How are they watching me interact when I'm with people? And so for me, I don't even know really how to articulate it because I feel like so much of these different versions of them either witnessing, being with me, doing it with me, or just hearing that I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I can wait because I want them to see little, but it will be curious to see what their versions of it, because each of them are so different. And when you guys know, when you have multiple kids, they look at it different. So, one of my kids is like, don't leave. I don't care if you help anybody else. And then another one has, I can see his heart of service happened very early. So, I don't think I even answered your question. It's actually just giving me a lot to ponder. And I think I'm just in it presently. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for bringing that up for me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting because children are, they're naturally ego-driven, self-driven, and they do tend to see your service to others as a lack of service to them. And I had the experience with my children growing up that when I was growing up, you weren't supposed to talk about your service or your contribution. It was kind of supposed to take place in quiet, and you did it without any expectations. And so when I was raising my kids, I didn't really talk about what I was doing. And some years rolled on, and I was having a conversation with my daughter, and something came up, and I told her, something that I had done, and she said, "Oh, I just assumed that all this time you were just selfish." And I was like, okay, yeah, I may have missed something there in the communication. So I think it's really tricky, this quandary of passing down the legacy of service. But I think it's probably true what you're saying is that everybody has their own path with service just the way they do every other aspect of life. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And
Yeah,
I know I'm seeing that, with my kids for sure.
absolutely.
Um, Thank you so much. Ashley, I wanted to ask you where joy comes in. So I'm wondering like what the relationship is between joy and service, as opposed to service and obligation, and kind of what your experience is with that.
Yeah, thank you. Jo- I feel like for me, joy is such an innate part of connecting with other humans. Like when I'm in the positive, when I'm in the light, when I'm in a balanced state for myself, and I've always found just this delight in the frequency of service and how it creates joy. It almost feels like the alchemy of two separate things of that there is some way to support the humanity. There's some way to support humanity, and then there's the way that humanity is receiving that support, and it just creates this magic of joy, and the reciprocity is flowing, and it's lovely, and it's beautiful. And when it operates from that space, it feels like your kind of cup can overfloweth, and that you can consider to kind of move forward in that trajectory of service. It just feels like there's no space of depletion, there's no space of exhaustion or lack on either side. It just feels like it continues. And I also feel there's this joy in knowing that there's a ripple effect that can exist, uh, that can shift the trajectory. I know this is more of a gift giving example, but it's what's coming to mind. I one time got a gift card to a coffee shop that is not a coffee shop I typically attend, and it was quite a significant gift card. And I thought, I'm never going to get through this gift. I'm just not. And I thought, I'm gonna pay it forward. I'm gonna serve in some ways like humanity. And I was sitting at this coffee shop because I had work to do or whatever. And so I had gifted this, and I watched over and over and over again that this card, watching the reaction and them not knowing, they didn't know where it came from. I didn't want to be identified, but I just watched the joy. And then I started watching, once the card depleted, that people were paying for the person behind them. And it just rippled, that natural service that came from a very innocent, curious, not self-serving place. It just had an effect that day. And who knows what that gift did for the people who touched in on the drive with those people, or wherever they went to work, or whatever they did. Like you don't know, and it's none of your business in a lot of ways, but it just offered this moment of joy and dreaming, and just a beautiful experience. And I feel like, on the counter of that, when it's obligation, when you feel an obligation, when you feel this demand or command, the frequency is different. It stops. Like there's something that kind of stops the energy from reaching, that energy of service reaching its full potential. There's a resentment, there's a resistance, there's like, I can feel it in my body. There's just like a little bit of a tussle that's going on, and you really have to persevere. You have to, or you have to resist. Like you have to, there's some energy, there's a force that is stopping the potential creation. And I think it's something that all of us that are drawn to service or feel like it's an innate part of our beingness, it's so important to kind of tune in to that, kind of similar to what Meggan was sharing. It's like what are you fighting against, and is that the thing? So that's what I'll share.
Beautiful. I'm feeling called to pop back to Joan because I feel with your professional experience and your 12-step experience, you could probably answer this question. And I'm very curious about the delicate balance between helping someone and recognizing that they're not actually in lack in any way. Kind of, do you understand what I'm getting at there? Yeah, please.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, the roots of social work were friendly visitors. Like that's the oldest turn of the century birth of the profession, and it does speak to the issue of sovereignty and perceived need and respecting and honoring whomever you're being of service to. So, and you did choose well in choosing me, because I think another aspect of the shadow of service can be that, like, I know best, or I know what you need, and so I'm going to give you that. I'm not necessarily going to ask you what you believe you need or want. I can see what you need, and so that's what I'm going to give. Um, and I think that had, in terms of the profession of social work, that was kind of some of the dark side of that. And certainly, when we talk about, Meggan was speaking about maybe the haves, or those with more resources looking after or being of service to those with less resources. I think there have been many examples of that, and there's certainly philanthropy is a huge part of communities of wealth. However, it's not always given from the standpoint of really understanding a community's need, or want or desire, or even I think about just the whole issue of colonization. People could say, well, that's being of service. We're going to save these people from themselves or from their primitive ideas. So it can get carried away. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tricky area. Meggan, I'm wondering if you could speak to this, because you also have been in so many situations where people are perceived as lacking, and
Mhm.
how do you deal with that? And also, can you talk a little bit about expectations and of the giver, and what are the pitfalls of that?
Mhm. I think that's why I said sometimes I would get like a little bit triggered by like charity, right? Because it is already the framework's there. This is what they need. Give it to them, right? And so sometimes that's why I think I was triggered in charitable situations. But I lived both sides when I worked for Cirque du Soleil for many years. We both we had social action programs where we worked with marginalized and homeless youth in social circus workshops. And we were on the streets and in the nonprofits servicing homeless youth, working directly with them. But then we were also writing really big checks and going to red carpet events on the Saturday night. So my world was like, I was in both worlds. I was giving money from, a well-known entertainment company, and mixing and mingling on red carpets, very weird, but then also, working in the trenches. And so I think for me, I saw the disconnect very directly at times. I won't say that was across the board. Not everyone was disconnected because they were philanthropists by any stretch. However, I saw that full spectrum for a period of my life. And for me, it's just really all been about that heart of compassion. I mean, it's, it's like if I was a midwife and I was with a woman who was giving a baby, because I did that too. I did a mock apprenticeship for a minute. So I was at like 9 home births. And even though a midwife is being paid, it's very much a service. And in that moment, I'm not seeing this woman as broken, not even technically like so many, the medical world might refer to a woman as having a condition, right? Like things like this. It's just that raw humanity. There's no time for judgment. There's no time for saying you should do it this way or that way. Like we're here to birth a baby. That's the work, right? It's not even fully about the mother at that moment. It doesn't, that mother could be in a homeless shelter. We could be having a baby in a homeless shelter. And it's just about that deep, raw humanity. It's the same exact feeling I have when I look into the eyes of an animal. It's no different for me. It's all just this like life and sustenance, right? We're here, I'm here because in some way, shape, or form, sustenance is needed. Let's do this. Let's sustain your life. Expectations of the giver. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, you can get expectations of the giver. Well, dependency could come into play, meaning that you're expected to be like superhuman in your giving. Or that expectations of the giver could be like, well, I'm about to receive some sort of service for you. You're judging me. I'm receiving service from you, and I expect that you're judging me right now. So I'm actually feeling ashamed, or I'm feeling embarrassed or humiliated. What about me as the person in service can I do to work around that, right? I would, so that's something that comes to mind is I wouldn't ever want somebody to feel like I'm judging them or that they're pathetic or any of that. Like, what if we treated a mother having a baby as pathetic instead of being there in service of this birth? That's it. The work is the work, right?
Yeah.
The service is the point.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
serve is the whole purpose of service.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's so interesting. And I think Ashley really nodded to this giving from a place of joy and connection and this awareness that we all will be givers and receivers at certain points in our lives. And so that's really beautiful. Lynnda, I want to switch gears just a little bit and ask you, can you speak a little bit about how we are uh, being in service when we seek to be more of ourselves, just being?
Well, I think the highest service we can be is ourselves because we're not trained to be ourselves. We're trained to be someone else that fits better into societal conditioning. So the more work we do on ourselves to really reveal who we really are, because we're actually so individual, and we each bring in something that's beautiful and necessary on the planet at the time that we're born here. So the more that we can uncover that and activate that, I think that itself, being our true selves is one of the highest forms of service. Because when we offer that to people in its purity, we are bringing frequencies and vibrations to people that can see who we really are, and that can become a model for them becoming who they are. So that to me is the most important thing, is because it's really hard to be of service when you're not being of service. You have a mask being of service or an idea of being of service. But I think, when you are actually of service, that's when discernment comes in. And that's when the purity of the act comes in, and you don't really ask for anything back, and nothing is really taken from you either, because you know how much you can give. So I think, that's the bullseye, when it comes to this is just, again, like we have to be of service to ourselves first and know who we are. And then we have that space to be able to provide to other people. So yeah.
I think I agree with everything that you're saying there, and I also feel like it's almost like we each have like a bubble of falseness around us, and when you can crack your own bubble open, people can observe that and say, "Oh, it's actually possible." But I think that, and also that service is probably the most courageous service that we can offer. And so I know even in my own experience that I've been on this path to crack myself open, crack my bubble open. And I think people close to me observe that and are like, no, thank you. If that's what it looks like, yeah, I think I'll take a pass. But eventually, when you move through the pain of it and the mess of it, and they see like, oh, there's something on the other side of that. That's always been part of my service is the other side. It's like providing a little bit of a hint that there is another side. So we're coming close to our hour, and I want to get through all of you one more time, and I just would like for you to share a little bit of how you are dreaming about serving. What would be your ultimate act of service that you can see for yourself in the future? And at the same time, how are you receiving service in your life right now? Let's start. Oh, Lynnda,
I'm sorry, I have to leave at 5:15. I have another call, so I will listen, but at 5:15, I'm just going to jump off.
why don't you just start?
Oh, how I dream of being of service in the future.
Yes.
I just want I think for me, my life journey and the experiences I have, I would like that to help other people as they go through their life journey, because I've had a lot of experiences, both positive and negative. I've been to the mountain and I've been to the valley. And I just want my life to be a model for others who are kind of following the same footsteps. Anyone who's in the process of waking up and going through sort of expansion of consciousness and don't really know what's happening and don't really know what to do about it all and are kind of stumbling and bumbling their way through, let people know that it's normal to feel that way. And so my service is at this point is just about being, like you said, like being who I am and being available to anyone that needs that for a period of time to help themselves and to get to the other side of it. Because it's not an easy, you all know, this is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest service I want is to help make it a little easier for everyone else that's coming up behind me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Jade, would you be able to share with us?
I can, and I have a little guy that's at my window right now, so I'm telling him just a few more minutes. So
Where's the dinner?
right. So I am dreaming of being of service, and I'm really going through this space of just so fully and creatively and wholly and joyfully like being. And, you guys, so many people have touched on it, like knowing yourself, knowing your part to play in this co-creation that we're living. And that talks about each family member and how we co-create in community like we're doing now. Like, what does that look like? But I think that what's been most alive for me is really getting to the space of bringing like my nervous system, my beliefs, like everything to the forefront of the center of like being and enjoying and living. Like I think so far in my future, and it may change, so don't quote me on this, but I used to look at my service like what legacy do I want to live? What and that's great, but it's like now, like I don't want to miss a moment. It like almost brings tears to my eyes, like the slowing down and the creating of service, like how do I embody this where other people, whether it just be through observing or we co-create, where it's like you don't have to go anywhere, like life is so beautiful. And I don't know if I'm making much sense because I got so excited to just feel that for a moment. um but I think that's what how do I create experiences or just moments where this can be a shared experience? So
That's beautiful that you are able to, while your children are still young, stop and really be in that present moment and enjoy every aspect of it. I really appreciate that. Megan, how about you? Thank you, Jade.
So right now I'm having fun receiving service. I not too long ago was working full time, doing yoga and mantras and healing sessions, and I have a publication too. I never mention it, but I do a lot of mantras through that card deck that I have. But I haven't been like working for almost a year now, and I've been on receiving service tour. I go to a lot of yoga classes. I'm doing many wellness things, sitting in the saunas, etc. But I feel like there's this actual crossroads between the giving and the receiving, because one of the things that I'm also doing is trying to purchase things as much as possible from my friends and from my very small knit community. I'm trying to support my friends' businesses, buy their books, buy their products, promote them and what they're doing. And so I'm kind of receiving and in service in that moment. For my future, I do see a lot of music coming out. I feel this I don't feel an urgency to produce and like make an album and go on tour, like not like that. But like it would be, I can't leave this earthly plane without these songs being out there. That's the urgency. So I will be recording music, and I feel that it is empowerment music. It's certainly very empowering for women, a lot of my music. And I have just had droves of music streaming through me for the last couple years. And I'm like, what am I doing with all this music? So I know that I am going to be giving my music away. Maybe I'll see some like retreats or something, in the future. But for me, it's really the way that I've seen I'm being called to service is I am literally, uh, uh, I would say 3 days doesn't go by where I don't get some solicited need for advice. People are calling me and asking me to just talk, say something.
Mhm.
And then their whole world changes by the end of the conversation. So there is something, I think I get that from you a little bit, Kay, like dropping little, like, I didn't even know I needed to hear that. That's a gift of Kay's. Yeah, without even talking to Kay, she sends you exactly what you need to hear, the meditation that you need. And that's happening a little bit in my life. People are calling up and asking, what the heck are we doing? What am I to do? So that's been, you know, a service that I see. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Megan. I feel like, something that we really haven't mentioned, but that I feel so strongly about our panel, those present today and some of the beautiful souls who join us periodically, is that we're all in service to this creation of the new way of being human, which is it's a heart-based world. It's not based on beliefs and thinking and striving. It's about entering into this beautiful flow, and it doesn't happen without each other. We can't do that we're not a flow by ourselves. We have to be in community with others. So I just wanted to mention that. Joan, can you share with us, please, about your future in service, and also if you would like to share about how you're being served? You're
Yes, thank
served.
you. Well, I will say it's not that long ago that I went through my second Saturn return. And during that journey, there was a dissolving and a falling away, similar to what Jade and Ashley mentioned about the conceptions I had related to service. And I remember a moment where I recognized that if the only thing I did in this life was to love myself fully, that would be enough. And I really needed that. Like, I needed to be let off the hook about doing whatever grand, great big thing. But if I was not able to love myself, it's like, what's the point? So I will say, I have felt called through this podcast to resurrect the word crone and to be a force and a presence of honoring the sacred in women and the gift of aging and the gift of the beingness and the presence and the wisdom that goes along with being conscious over the arc, or as conscious as we're able, and arriving at a distillation point. And I remember when the most recent assassination occurred and things were just erupting, just feeling the resolve of like knowing how important it is for those of us that have just a sense of presence to be a point where people, like Meggan said, people can reach out to you or people can look to you and just feel a grounding presence or feel a presence of sanity.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Ashley, can you weigh in here? We'd like to bring it full circle with you.
Thank you. For me, my service comes in community. It has been, it's just the greatest joy of my life. I'm going to cry. Oh my gosh. I just love bringing people together. And I've started to adapt that to not just being a community that gathers under one ideology or one book or one spiritual leader or one movement practice or one spiritual tool, but actually allowing for everyone with their unique gifts and skills and wisdom to actually come to the table and start having a dialogue in a safe space to allow for how we are going to continue to amplify this new paradigm of operating from the heart. And I honestly feel like the only way that I could understand that is through, in my weakest moment. Wow, I'm really emotional. My goodness. And my biggest heartbreak that happened in relationship to community, excuse me, is I had to lean into my friends. I had to lean into my community to help pick me up off the floor. And it helped me to realize that this type of community, that new blueprint of different ideologies and different understandings of the world, that's how we come together. That's how we do it. So that's what my service will look like. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that heartfelt share. I also just want to conclude by saying that each of our panelists is creating a vision for the future, and that is possibly the biggest service that we can render, is the dreaming of a better way. So thank you so much for your service in that way. Thank you all for participating. It was a lovely conversation. Thank you for your patience as I, did the thing. So bye guys. Thank you so much.
Bye,
I'm also
friends.
going to link everything down below so everybody can get in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Bye, friends.
Bye bye, friends.